if we look at the situation today, Luxembourg is still, it's still a fantastic place to live.
Of course.
But it's not because it's a fantastic place to live today that, 10 or 20 years down the road, it will still be. So if we don't take today the right decision, it will be an issue.
Today, I have the pleasure to welcome in the studio Rene Beltjens. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's a real honor. Rene made history last year with his colleagues from AlterDomus because they secured an investment from Cinven with a value of $5.3 billion. So this is a new unicorn in Luxembourg. So let's jump right into it. You arrived there in 2008 after a few years at PwC. Can you present a little bit the activity of AlterDomus?
Okay, thank you. Yes, a few years. So it was like, I just missed the 20 years of PwC. So just
yeah, you did PwC from 89 to 2008.
Yeah, and here in Luxembourg since 93. So 93, 94. So the activity of AlterDomus is quite simple. It's really centered around the alternative investment funds, and so we are doing basically almost all kinds of back office functions, and also more and more middle office type of functions. And in the alternative world, effectively also we are specialized in private equity funds, real estate funds, and debt and capital markets. So we are not doing any kind of hedge funds because the systems are completely different. And so maybe another element which distinguishes a company like AlterDomus compared to banks, we are administering not only the funds themselves, but also, in many cases, especially for real estate and private equity funds, just under the fund you have also special purpose companies through which targets are being acquired. Yes. So we are also administering these SPVs, as well as in a number of countries, the property companies which are being held by these SPVs. So I think one of the kind of unique aspects that we have, certainly compared to the banks, is the fact that we can have this vertical integration and servicing our clients through different levels. And the other level that we can serve is, of course, at the level of the GPs and of the LPs.
Yeah, and it's interesting to know that the company was basically created around 2001, and the first name was Billon and Associés, where Gérard Becquet was immediately involved. He was also an ex-PwC. Then he was joined by Dominique Robbins a little bit later, and you joined in 2008. So 3 people from PwC who basically did all the work, creating a new structure, administrating it during the custody and all the services, but only in alternatives. What are the success keys of AlterDomus?
Okay, so I think there are a few of them. First, as a company, you have to have a focus. So, myself, I'm a big proponent in the core business of a company. So what you're doing well, you can do it even better. And so very early on, we have focused on the fund administration sector, and actually not even the whole fund administration sector.
Only alternatives.
Alternative and actually outside of hedge funds. So private equity, real estate funds,
debt,
and debt. So basically, I think that's very important, because then you can have all the resources of the company, which are also very focused themselves.
Do well what you do well.
Do well and do better
tomorrow. And improve it.
And improve
Instead
it.
of trying to be good at everything and becoming average at everything. So you're also open to outsource what you're not doing so well to specialized providers.
Correct.
Okay, very good. What would be a second key, so apart from focus?
So second element is governance. So, like I would say, in any company, you have to have a clear governance framework. So, very early on, so back more than 10 years ago, we decided to, as the founders of the company, to hire new talent, so probably much better than we were in order to to grow the company, but that's absolutely okay. That's even very good. In order to have an executive committee separate from the supervisory board, so that
you went one step higher. Dominique yourself became member of the supervisory,
yes.
And you led the executive team with new blood, basically.
Exactly.
And that made a big difference.
And yes, so because I think it's also very important for any type of company not to depend, only on a few people.
Of course.
So,
very good. Is there any other key in the history? Maybe how did you get to America? Because you started in Luxembourg.
Right. Well, I guess probably it's a mixture of luck and vision. So very early on, because we started from the administration of companies, special purpose companies, which are below the funds. And so, but very early on, we decided to that in a defensive and offensive move, that we needed also to do the administration of the funds themselves, and so that we would be able to serve our clients vertically, which the banks couldn't do.
So you expanded the value chain for fear that the people who were doing the fund would do the same going down.
Exactly, and expanding the value chain, but having the same clients, right?
Exactly.
So you are not dispersing yourself, and back to the focus. Yes. It's the same. You have the same clients along the chain. So, which is why also we could do the administration of property companies which are below the special purpose company, and we can also do a number of work for the general partner and the limit partners which are above the funds.
And it's interesting because the 3 success key you just gave are exactly the one that we talk about for Luxembourg today. So focus, of course, know what you're good at and sell that. Governance, we saw Caritas last year. Governance is extremely important to determine the success. And here you talk about leadership and vision and knowing beforehand where to go. And I remember that when you invested a lot in 2008, 9, 10, difficult times for the alternative investment, when 2012 came with a new toolkit, you were fully ready to accelerate your growth. You had one move in advance, you could say.
Yes, absolutely. And there, indeed, to the point was, we had decided to go somewhere. Back in 2008, 2009, we could have said, okay, well, yes, let's wait to see how things are going. I'm convinced that we would then have been too late in 2012, to restart, and just on the on the vision and kind of additional bold move. So you mentioned the US, indeed. So back 2016, where we were thinking, well, if we think we can become number one in Europe, but if we want to become number one worldwide, we have to be in the US, and going greenfield will take too much time. So that's why we decided we need external help, and that's why Permira came on board in 2017, and that helped us definitely to acquire Cortland in the US in 2018, so 1 year later.
Yeah, so it's quite fascinating with those 3 keys. I could add one more, because 360 Cross Media is working with AlterDomus for many years. It's culture. I'm always impressed when I work with your colleagues. People are on time, it's short meetings, there's a lot of decisions, and when things are decided, they are implemented. And I think this is one thing you really nailed. I link it with your and Dominique's mindset. I remember a long time ago you were investing in EasyWiz, which is a tech company. It was very difficult, but you sold it to one of your biggest competitors, and it became a client. So I think you had this vision to try, succeed or fail, and that made you extremely resilient. And I also see that you don't have a big turnover, because all your employees have an interest in the success of the company. So that's basically how you make a unicorn. So let's talk a little bit about one thing which is very important to me today, which is entrepreneurship and investment. You know, we have the state who can do subsidies or regulation. We have start-uppers, entrepreneurs, and we have investors. And Luxembourg is lucky to have a lot of private equity or VC players. How could we make this ecosystem work better? Because if I was let's say, Ukrainian entrepreneur, the only reason or main reason that would take me here is access to financing. But in reality, we know this is not really a place where you see private equity or VCs investing like crazy. How can we make this work better?
Okay, so I think for smaller companies or startups, what is very important is, okay, so the ease of starting a business. So it obviously it has not to become a jungle, but how can we do so that, you know, if you want to start a business, all the process around it is as simple as possible. And I mean, there are some countries in so like Estonia also, which
super fast,
where it's super fast. Luxembourg has also a huge advantage, well, disadvantage, but also a huge advantage of being a small country. So we should have, you know, very
straightforward, fast.
It should be very fast, and also lines of communication should be, you know, as short as possible. So for me, that would be the first element. How can we simplify as much as possible? How can, you know, today why can't we just you know, set up a company almost online? Yeah, obviously, you know, you have also to have the KYC, AML procedures, but you can also simplify those things. So even more than, you know, subsidies, I think that's a very important element. For the subsidies, I think, well, back to what I was saying earlier, so focus. I wouldn't have, you know, subsidies for so all sectors, or I would try to focus on a few sectors which, you know, can help us for the future. And so obviously
fintechs.
Well, I think obviously the fintech, yes, because we are a financial place, so we should try to attract talent in that space. Not only because, I mean, the country cannot only work on you know,
on one industry,
on one industry, one sector, but so choosing 3, 4, 5, and where we think that it can bring value added for the country, because, you know, well, there are many things where we hear, okay, yes, we could do better, but, you know, if we look at the situation today, Luxembourg is still, well, it's still a fantastic place to live.
Of course.
But it's not because it's a fantastic place to live today that, you know, 10 or 20 years down the road, it will still be. So if we don't take today the right decision, it will be an issue. I mean, you know, well, I'm Belgian of origin. You know, look at what has happened to the Walloon region, and especially Liège and Charleroi,
yes.
Which, you know, you go back 150 years ago, it was the, you know, at the core of innovation, not only in Belgium but in the world.
That's true.
So it's very important for Luxembourg not just to think, okay, things are great today, they will continue to be great today. No, we are in a world which is moving faster and faster. So how can we choose these few sectors? And I mean, we might be right or wrong. Yeah, that's
of course. I mean, today the ministries will tell you that they are focusing on space, on fintechs, on startups in general. I hear there's a new initiative with health tech, which might be good. We remember Jeannot Créquet started this 15 years ago. It might be good to double down. What else would you see? Do you see other sectors where we should invest? Maybe energy, like batteries or something like this?
Yes, well, so definitely have clear thoughts about the energy sector, because for me, energy is at the basis of everything. Because, you know, take why was Great Britain, so why was there the empire of Great Britain? Because they mastered energy earlier than anybody else in the world.
Don't know.
So that's what made their
Industrial
power.
Revolution.
Industrial Revolution, and then, you know, they conquered the world with that. Mm-hmm. And today, obviously, it's not only thought at the level of Luxembourg, but I think it should be also complete rethink the European level. If we want to have to continue to live, a comfortable life, mm-hmm. We need more energy, mm-hmm. and I think it's an illusion to believe that so we should have a degrowth, consume less energy. You know, look at what is happening in the US. So the Google, Meta, Amazon, they are going for nuclear power, and because artificial intelligence is consuming a lot of
enormous amounts.
So do we want to go for degrowth of energy? So which means no artificial intelligence revolution? But that means that we won't be competitive anymore.
Yeah, so Trump wants to drill. We should at least find. I know there's a company in Luxembourg who is trying to talk to ministers, which is a next step fusion. Well, mm-hmm. if it was a priority, this guy should have a meeting at the Ministry of Economy tomorrow, like red carpet. Yes. Tell us. Maybe we'll do it or we won't, but at least listen to it, identify energy as a priority. We import 79% of our electricity. So indeed, if we can come up with a little fusion reactor, that could be a good solution. Any other ideas of fusion, health tech? Where would you see potential to focus?
So none that come to my attention right now, but
yeah. But again, the focus.
Yes, and so again, so back to once again on the energy. Like, okay, so you have these small nuclear reactors, which are now being implemented in a number of countries, including so here in France. I mean, I can understand, given the size of Luxembourg, that having one of those big nuclear centers might be too big for the country, but shouldn't we think about EPR's type of nuclear power?
At least thinking about it.
Yes, at least thinking about it. Of course, because strategically also, I mean, it would allow us to have a reserve, because we don't have uranium, but we could buy uranium for the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, storage is key. Because we are learning slowly that the wind and the sun are not stable, so we need batteries. But you're right that in nuclear, you can have the energy stored, and gives you more independence in case of a conflict. Just going back to investments, you talked about subsidies. I don't believe that subsidies is really what great entrepreneurs want. What they want is contracts, and maybe good investors, like you did with Permira. Do you see this happening, that investors could come more together with maybe a public-private partnership and startups?
And stability.
And we have stability.
Yes, exactly. So no, that's indeed. I agree. It's this is more important than the subsidies.
It has more value. Such. I mean, we know that Luxembourg is lagging in terms of digitization. If any ministry gives a contract to a startup, the value of the startup immediately goes up because it's a contract. Subsidy is just subsidy. It's also not facilitating the best culture. You live off public money and then it runs out. It's not
because when I was saying so for the subsidies for a few sectors, it's also you have to think, okay, I have to give the subsidies in sectors which are not far enough in their development
to accelerate it.
Exactly, but
not the mature one, the start-uppers.
Exactly.
I always say some startups don't start and they're not going up, so they're not startups. Let's conclude maybe with Luxembourg again. You've been in the driving seat during those decades of incredible growth. Which opportunities and risks do you identify for the country as an economy?
Okay, so again, so the opportunity is that today we still have a very sound basis. So yes. Debt is still very well relatively
below 30 billion.
Yes. So relatively low. So it's a great place to be. Now on the other hand, we have to think about this like 10, 20 years from now. So we know that there is this pension issue which will come. I put it under the carpet. Every year that it's under the carpet, it grows effectively. So one day there will be a problem. So I would say the sooner the better to address it. So the main challenge I think is because so we have had this real estate crisis and so difficulty for people to find housing. So we should do better in that respect. I mean, can't we look at better at what, for instance, a country like Singapore is doing, because they have the same kind of challenges, and so the level of living in Singapore is also very, very high, so which makes it very difficult for a number of people to live there if there was not some kind of help for the housing. Can we do something more or less similar? Because
what do they do there? Because I know they mix several cultures in the same areas, but do they subsidize? Or what do
yes, there are some places which are subsidized for the housing. Now, well, I know we have some system like that here, but is it really working? We've seen it's
a tiny fraction, because we're not building, so it's one. Yes. I don't know the number exactly, but it's a very, very limited number of housing units who are eligible.
Correct, and even for those which exist, I've seen a few cases where actually nobody wants to buy them, or it's not a full purchase because long lease and nobody wants to take them up. So maybe have a rethink about that. But I think it's very important to think about how can we have a full society, and so people which have, of course, and that's unavoidable, people which have lower salaries, and people, of course, which have higher salaries and create probably much more value added, but we all need also
inclusivity. How do we remain inclusive for everybody?
Yes.
And again, maybe here the solution is private public. I'm advocating for very cheap housing units, because young people, they party all night. They just want a bed. They don't need 100 meters, but they want it near the work, and they want it below 500 euro per month,
right? Because
that's the price they pay in Paris, where you've got subsidies. So this is, of course, a difficult challenge. I hope that with the exit, you'll be involved in those discussions and investments, because that's also what we need. We need every party to be involved.
And I think it's all the more important, because what we see with our young people which come to work here, if you come and you live in Luxembourg, there's much more probability that you will continue to live in Luxembourg.
And I think that's going to be a good ending. How long were you supposed to stay when you arrived in 1992?
Good question. So 5 years.
And that's been a little bit more than that. Well, I would like to congratulate you for making history, building a unicorn almost from scratch. This is really inspiring for the economy. And thank you for taking the time to answer our questions.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you.